Hallo en welkom in mijn keuken. Mooie keuken, al zeg ik het zelf. Wij gaan vandaag oefenen met koken in de keuken. Koken in de keuken en praten over recepten. Praten over recepten. Nou, we have, over the last couple of weeks, really practiced our sentences, getting used to them. And now, slowly, I really want you to try and get more into a free flow of a conversation. Now, that might still take some time as we are extending our vocabulary. So focus on your vocabulary lists to keep that going. However, now that you're getting used more to the verbs and the sentence structure in Dutch, you can make more sentences on your own and probably more than you realize. So if you've nailed down now your verb conjugation, your sentence structure, and using my technique of Dutchifying things, then you can know and say more than you realize. Another great technique is to just make your Dutch sentence with the words that you know and the words that you don't know, say it in English and look them up as you go. Now, we'll start with me asking you some questions. Then we're going over a little reading text where I'll be asking you questions after, a recipe, and then some short conversation. So let's get on to it. As per usual, I ask you the question. You can read them here on screen, and then I want you to try and answer them. I also will give you some examples from my end, and you can even try and ask me the question as well, right? So we create a little bit of a conversation. So I could ask you, wat is jouw meest favoriete recept? Use the question to make your answer as well. It's a very simple sentence. And you can even ask, after writing it down, I encourage you to ask me the question, and what is your favorite recipe? Okay, so an example could be, mijn meest favoriete recept is lasagne, for example. Then we can ask, wat heb je gisteren gegeten? Wat heb je gisteren gegeten? Ik kan zeggen, and we use the heb and gegeten as well, so you can kind of copy that. So, ik heb gisteren, because we use time, gisteren, en ik kan zeggen geroosterde groenten met zalm en quinoa gegeten. Dat kan ik zeggen. Wat ga je morgen eten? Ik ga morgen bij familie eten. Wij gaan, hoe noem je dat ook alweer? Wij gaan kip eten met knoflooksaus, salade en frietjes. Good one to know actually is wij gaan ons eten afhalen. Okay, so let's zoom into this one. Again, ga is matched to ik. Eten therefore comes at the end and is infinitive verb. This is just literally the rest. You could also or the object. You could also say, wij gaan kip met knoflooksaus, salade en frietjes eten. You can be consistent and put the eten at the end. Maar je mag ook zeggen, wij gaan kip eten as a shorter sentence. Keep that eten closer to the gaan. And then add the add-ons of your meal. Van jouw maaltijd. Afhalen is in this case to like take out or take away, depending on where you are in the world. So, yeah. Even kijken, vraag 4. Wat is jouw favoriete keuken? Mijn favoriete keuken is Aziatisch. Ik eet heel graag krapau. Bijvoorbeeld, right? So you can add sentences onto it as you go along. Try and make more conversation. So voeg meer zinnen toe. Kijk of je een kort gesprekje kan vormen met meer dan 1 zin, right? So really try and be detailed and extensive and elaborate in your answer where you can. Even if you don't know words, right? Like let's say you want to talk about the taste. See if you can look up that word. You will learn a lot in this course, but there are situations or that you talk about or that come across in your conversation that you really want to take on. Alright, vraag 5. Welke materialen gebruik je om je avondeten te maken? Dus vanavond eet ik pizza. If we're just getting into our materials, dan zeg ik gebruik mijn oven, een bord, een snijplank, mes en vork, een pizzasnijder. Let's see, what else do I use? Een scherp mes. Dat is het volgens mij. En misschien een ovenband, right? Om de pizza uit de oven te halen. So, ik haal de pizza uit de oven met mijn ovenband. Ik snijd de ingrediënten, de groenten, in kleine stukjes. Ik doe kaas op mijn pizzabodem. Mijn pizzabodem is een wrap. En ik doe tomatensaus op mijn wrap. Ik doe de groenten op mijn wrap. Ik doe salami op mijn pizza. En ik top het af met wat kaas. De pizza gaat in de oven op 200 graden voor ongeveer 10 minuten. Daarna haal ik de pizza uit de oven. Ik leg mijn pizza wrap op mijn bord. En ik eet mijn pizza met mes en vork. Hopefully you were able to understand that. Go over it again where necessary and see if you can get the gist of it. It is, obviously, we know how to make pizza, so it's logic, use your logic, trying to see if you could understand me. I did speak very slow, so it shouldn't be that difficult. Now, let's go over the next slide as we go along. All right. Let me actually copy this down here and we get to clear this and we'll go over our reading text. Okay? So, I will encourage you om de tekst te lezen. Dan luisteren naar mij. So, pause the video now. Read the text. Lees de tekst. Speel de video af. Luister naar mij. Listen to me. En beantwoord mijn vragen. Okay? And actually it's answering the questions that are here. So de 5 vragen uit de tekst. The purpose of this exercise is, can you answer these questions in your own words, basically? So can you summarize your own answer in this text? So that's what you can do as well. Read the text, answer the 5 questions in your own words. Could be 1 or 2 sentences. Kan 1 of 2 zinnen zijn. And then listen to me while I also answer the questions. Okay? So pause if needed. I am going to read the text to you. Handige tips en trucs. Welke aardappel gebruik je voor de lekkerste stampot? Voor een stampot kan je het beste een kruimige aardappel kopen. Dit soort aardappels bevatten meer zetmeel. Daardoor vallen ze na het kopen makkelijk uit elkaar en zijn ze het meest geschikt voor puree. Hoe kan je aardappelen het beste stampen? Met een oud-Hollandse stamper natuurlijk. Hierdoor heb je zelf in de hand hoe grof of fijn jouw stampot zal worden. De pureeknijper of keukenmachine is een aanrader als je houdt van een super gladde puree. Hoe maak je je stampot lekker smeuig? Voeg eigeel toe als je jouw stampot lekker smeuig of romig om wilt maken. Interesting. Maar het geeft je puree ook een mooiere kleur. Voeg het eigeel wel toe wanneer je stampot nog heet is. Zo voorkom je dat je rauw ei serveert. Wat te doen als je stampot te nat is? Een natte stampot is gelukkig makkelijk op te lossen door aardappelpureepoeder toe te voegen. De hoeveelheid ligt aan hoe nat je stampot is en hoe vast je hem wilt hebben. Begin met een eetlepel en stamp goed door. Mocht het dan nog te nat zijn, dan voeg je nog een eetlepel toe. Hoe maak je stampot zonder aardappelen? Een stampot maken zonder aardappel is hartstikke simpel. Denk bijvoorbeeld aan een pompoenstampot. Op die manier maak je jouw stampot koolhydraatarm. Maar kikkererwten doen het ook verrassend goed als aardappelvervanger. Probeer het eens met deze Turkse stampot. So dat is de tekst. Cool. I am going to adjust this sentence because the recipe provided online, as we can sometimes see, this is a good example, right? So I used a recipe from the website 24kitchen.nl. Lots of Dutch recipes. It's a Dutch organization, a Nederlandse organisatie, and even there they use different or incorrect Dutch sometimes. We are all human beings, so sometimes there is a mistake. So there is a contamination in this sentence. So we have to say, instead of te wilt maken, we want to make it creamy. Okay. Laten we de vragen beantwoorden. Welke aardappel gebruik je voor de lekkerste stampot? Zo, ik begin dan met voor de lekkerste stampot gebruik ik een kruimige aardappel, right? So I've gathered that from the text. So, what kind of potato do you use for the yummiest stampot? Well, for the yummiest stampot, position 1, verb position 2, subject position 3, and then you add what kind of potato you use, right? Hoe kan je aardappelen het beste stampen? Again, you can use the same thing for your sentence. And you can start with ik. Ik stamp mijn aardappelen. So I stamp, I mash my potatoes. Het beste, the best, met een oud-Hollandse stamper. Punt. Okay? So I mash my potatoes the best with a old Dutch masher. Oké, gaan we door naar de volgende. Hoe maak je je stampot lekker smeuig? Ik maak mijn stampot lekker smeuig. Met een eigeel. Or I could say door een eigeel toe te voegen, right? So if you want to use a bit more extensive vocab, you can use the second part. So I make my stampot nice and smooth and creamy with a egg yolk. Or so I make my stampot nice and creamy by adding an egg yolk. So that is, instead of by, we say like through adding. And toevoegen is adding. All right. Notice how we say egg yellow rather than egg yolk. Pretty funny. All right. Wat te doen als je stampot te nat is? Als mijn stampot, this is an extensive sentence, te nat is, voeg ik aardappelpureepoeder toe. You can make this easier by switching it around. Like I add, ik voeg aardappelpureepoeder toe als mijn stampot te nat is. Okay, let's go into this sentence. This is a A1, A2 level sentence, okay? Essentially, I'll explain this one first because it's slightly easier. As long as you begin with your subject, it is a really easy, understandable sentence. I'll place a comma here. The comma kind of shows you that the sentence consists out of two main sentences, which means that it both has a subject, so two subjects in total, and therefore also two verbs that need to match that subject in total. However, the position is a bit different. So, ik voeg aardappelpuree toe is the main sentence, right? So this is the actual action. And then you give details like, when do you add it? When my stampot is too wet. So if we look at this bit, there's two things happening. So subject verb is still number 1 and 2 position. Very easy peasy, straightforward. Then we've got our object of what we're adding. However, adding is like add on to whatever you already have. So add on is 2 words as well. So the on is considered to be a part of the adding, ergo part of your verb. Same here. Voeg is the main verb, voegen. And to is originally a preposition, but it is a wannabe verb. Now, if we look at this sentence, it is treated as a verb. So the main verb is matching ik in second position. To is the wannabe verb and goes last. Okay? That is our main sentence. If we use two main sentences together, hint, you need to use a comma as well. And you have a conjugation word like als, when, or if, then you treat this second part of the sentence, which I call a dependent sentence, meaning it depends on the main verb here. Then I put the verb at the end as well. So it's not als mijn standpunt is te nat, maar als mijn standpunt te nat is. So the is needs to go last. However, it is matchy with mijn standpunt. So mijn standpunt is. Here we see that we start our sentence with als, with the conjugation word. So the order here is the same because I start my sentence with this conjugation word. Whenever you use a conjugation word, so by conjugation word, I mean like a connection word. It connects two sentences with each other. So like if, or when, or because, or but, or so, or even though, or so that, all those kind of connection words, triggers. And it triggers that we need to put the verb at the end. If I start with what I call a dependent sentence, you can see this whole sentence as position 1, meaning that the main verb still goes into position 2 here. Alternatively, if you start a sentence with a connection word, then I need to make this main verb priority by adding it straight after the comma. So basically you have 2 verbs in a row. Then you add the subject because it needs to be attached to the verb, then the object, and then again to in this case because it's also considered part of the verb and goes last. So the difference is here I had subject verb and here I have verb subject. So it's an inversion. If this is too far ahead, that's okay. This is not necessarily material, but if you are ready to make these kind of sentences or you are keen to try it out, this is the correct structure. Okay? Let's go into our last question. Hoe maak je stamppot zonder aardappelen? So, ik maak stamppot zonder aardappelen. Met, for example, bijvoorbeeld pompoen of kikkererwten, right? So this is all information that I have found in the text. So these are answers that I have used. Now, it's very important. Hopefully you can compare your answers with mine, see what is the same, what is different. If you want, you can ask for feedback or work together with one of the other students in the portal as well. Okay. Also take some time to get used to knowing certain words. It's with texts like these, it's understanding the context, same with listening exercises, rather than I need to understand every word. But if this is you, you can translate every word because it does deepen your practice as such. Okay. Het recept. Same thing. I want you to read through it. See what a Dutch recipe looks like. It is very like we use an imperative, we give instructions, right? So I'll go into this in a second, but I want you to read through this and then we'll use this in our explanation of the imperative. So we're looking at a typical Dutch recipe. We kijken naar een typisch Nederlands recept, boerenkoolstampot. Again, de stampot, weer stampot van boerenkool. Boerenkool is kale. En we maken boerenkoolstampot voor 4 personen. En we hebben nodig 1 kilo kruimige aardappels, 200 gram spekblokjes, 400 gram grof gesneden boerenkool, 30 gram roomboter, 1 rookworst, peper en zout naar smaak en optioneel een scheutje azijn, een klein scheutje. Extra nodig een pureeknijper of stamper. Dus dit zijn materialen die niet iedereen altijd heeft, right? So these are materials that not always people have. So you really need to make sure you have that measure. However, in every Dutch household, that will be there. Let's go through the steps, de bereidingwijze. So how you make it, how you prepare it, bereiden. Stap 1. Schil en spoel de aardappels. Breng de boerenkool en aardappels in een pan met water en een beetje zout aan de kook. Kook de aardappels en boerenkool in ongeveer 20 minuten gaar. Stap 2. Bereid de rookworst volgens de verpakking. Stap 3. Bak in een andere pan de spekblokjes bruin en krokant zonder olie toe te voegen. Stap 4. Giet de aardappels en boerenkool af. Stamp de aardappels met de boerenkool, een snufje zout en peper, azijn, optioneel, en de boter fijn. Als de stampot nog wat te droog is, voeg je een beetje extra boter toe. Stap 5. Schep de spekblokjes door de boerenkoolstampot en serveer het geheel met de rookworst. This is me reading the recipe. Now, take a moment to see if you can understand the full recipe. Okay? We'll go over it in a second, but really get used to it. Could you understand what I was saying? Could you understand the words thus far? Could you get the gist of it or guess the words as you go along? Okay. I am explaining to you the imperative, the instructies, right? So if I want to give instructions or I want to make commands or I want to ask somebody to do something for me real quick, then we use what is called the imperative. This is, for example, like give me the knife or can you please wash the plate, right? These are some examples. It could be very commanding, like sit down. Or I could say, can you please sit down? Or you can sit down here. So those are different ways. Obviously, tone of voice plays an important role. And so there is a level of, I can really say it as a command. I can give a suggestion. I can give an instruction. And it goes from like being demanding to asking it more friendly to make it like a suggestion, to kind of say it as well as like you kind of need to do this and you don't have a choice, or you kind of need to do this and you do have a choice. So for example, if I want to say, give me the knife, we can see in English as well that we start with the verb. So these are the only exceptions as when you ask a question here, where we start with a verb. So the verb, the instruction is really, really important. And we use the I form for this, right? So as we know, we have different matches for the verbs when it comes to plural, recognizable by en, and we have our singular, where we can talk about I, or where we can talk about you, he, and she, and in the letter we add an T to it. Okay, for these ones, we use only the I form, because usually you say it to one person, but even when we say it to a group of, let's say, people, kids, we still use the I form. Now, if we look at I give means ik geef. So you start with geef, En je say, geef me het mes. Geef me het mes. Okay? I could say, geef me het mes, and be very commanding. I could also soften my tone and still say, geef me het mes. This is where Dutch directness comes in. In English, we are very inclined to add the word please or can you do this for me, blah, blah, blah. In Dutch, it's just like, just give me the knife. I've been really spoken to about this, like, oh, you need to say please, or can you ask nicer? But this is where I come from. Like, we're very direct and we don't mean it in a derogative way or commanding way at all. It's just how we speak. So if you are across Dutchies who just say, geef me het mes, especially in this tone of voice, we don't mean it mean. We're not trying to demand anything for you. We're just like, okay, just give me the knife and we'll move on with life, right? That's it. So be aware of that cultural difference there. However, we can make it more friendly as well. So I've added this example with, can you please wash the plate, right? We use can and we use please. For example, here the can is going to be the main verb, but I want to explore wash as well. So I wash is ik was. We can say this in two different ways. Was je even het bord? So wash you the plate, wash the plate. So was het bord? I could say was je even het bord. Even on its own means for a little while, literally. Okay, so obviously if we wash a plate, it takes like a minute or so and you're done. So it is time sensitive, so we can add even. But what even does here as well is kind of politeness. I'm asking you politely if you can wash this for me. Even het bord? I could ask, wil je even het bord wassen? Of kan je even het bord wassen? Wil is probably the friendliest to ask. And kan is also an option. So if I add even, I'm being more friendly. Obviously, you can add alsjeblieft if you want to. If that's from your culture, please do so. Again, you will notice that Dutchies don't really say alsjeblieft because too direct. Now, let's look at the imperative back into this recipe, okay? And again, you will see this in recipes as well. They're short and sweet, very Dutch, but obviously in other languages, you'll see this as well. But it's a good practice to see it in the recipes and also have a little look at recipes online, right? So the recipe, again, is from 24kitchen.nl. So it has lots of different recipes and it's accessible from anywhere in the globe. I know my favorite supermarket, the Albert Heijn, has amazing recipes as well. However, if you're not living in the Netherlands, you can't access this website unless you have a VPN. So that's a bit of a bummer. Okay, let's go into this. So schil and spoel, which means I could say ik schil, I peel, and ik spoel, I wash. Ik breng, I bring. And ik kook, I cook. Right? So cook the potatoes, peel and wash off the potatoes, bring the kale to boiling. Here, ik bereid, prepare, ik bak, I bake, etc. So you'll see that here we all have verbs at the start of the sentence and used for the I form. Okay, so in the exercises, you will find some examples to practice the imperative. And yeah, practice with this as such. So remember, the verb goes in the beginning. It's an instruction, could be from very commanding to friendly. Here, you know, like prepare the sausage according the package. it's just an instruction, right? Like there's no hard feelings here. It's just short and sweet. Again, how we talk. All right, I'm just gonna delete this here. And lastly, we're going to have some short conversations. So take some time to pause the video, come up with your own answer, and then compare it to what I write. Korte gesprekjes. Je vrienden komen bij je eten. Vertel wat je gaat maken. Oké? For example, I want to come up with something really Dutch, but unfortunately our dinners are not really worthwhile to write home about. So the Dutch cuisine is usually cooked potatoes, plain veggies, and a plain form of meat separate. That's like typical Dutch. I don't eat that. You could be short and sweet, say like, oh, ik ga, geen idee, ik ga nasi goreng maken. Oké? In mijn nasi goreng zit rijst met kip. Wat kunnen we nog meer erin doen? Paprika, boontjes, ui en wat kunnen we er nog meer bij doen? En pak soy bijvoorbeeld. Ja. Ik maak er ook satésaus bij. So it's basically a list of things that you make. You can extend it again for your own practice, but this would be a sufficient answer. Je zus wil jouw favoriete recept weten. Geef haar de instructies. Dus mijn favoriete recept is lasagne. For the lasagne, and this is to practice the instructions, right? So you can just like share the recipe. You can find your recipe in English and translate it. Voor de lasagne heb je lasagnebladen, tomatensaus, gehakt en kaas nodig. I'm not putting all the ingredients here, but you get the gist, right? So you need this and this and this and this. Okay, so snijd alle groenten in kleine stukjes. Verwarm de oven voor op 200 graden. Rul het gehakt en voeg de saus en groenten toe. Wet een ovenschaal in. Schep de saus in de schaal. Leg de lasagnebladen erbovenop. Voeg de kaas toe en herhaal. Doe de schaal voor 40 minuten in de oven. Okay, so simple instructions. Again, I've really used the I form here to give my instructions as well. Okay, laatste. Jij maakt het avondeten en zeg tegen jouw partner welke materialen en ingrediënten je nodig hebt. So let's pretend you are cooking, but you're asking him to help you out a little bit by giving you the materials and ingredients, right? So wij maken, even kijken, burritos vanavond. Ik heb wraps nodig en ook kaas, tomaat, zwarte bonen, salsa saus, avocado en mais, bijvoorbeeld, right? Kan je mij ook een snijplank geven. En een bord, scherp mes, een vork. Even denken. En een lepel, alsjeblieft. Okay, so simple instructions, simple questions, but then, put your sauce on top of it and tell them what you need. Great exercise to work around with the different verbs, materials as well, and ingredients that you need. So the more that you do this in Dutch, the more you will get to know like ingredients that you use a lot, and the more you get to know all the materials that you use in the kitchen. So this is your practice, and really get used to, however you do this. I love it. It's so good. Alright, dit is de les voor vandaag. Je hebt nu geleerd hoe je een recept kan lezen en begrijpen. Je kan instructies geven en je kan een tekst lezen en begrijpen. Dat is alles voor vandaag. En dit is week 4. Heel goed gedaan en ik zie jou volgende week weer. Tot volgende week.